Make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be doing random drawings out of my subscribers, and if you're chosen, you will get to pick the next movie I review. We got the explanation for the name Thunderbolts, but not about that damn asterisk. Head on over to Rotten Tomatoes and you will see that the audience gave Marvel's Thunderbolts 95%, and the critics weren't far behind, giving it 89%. So let's jump right in and roast the critics who hated Thunderbolts. Fred Topol from United Press International says, an egregious retard of previous Avengers movies to much lesser effect. Whoa. Oh, sorry, Retread. It's Retread. I'm the retard. Matt Oakes from Silver Screen Riot says, these movies aren't just bad in the traditional sense anymore. They're the hollowed out detritus of a crumbling empire. So I'm curious, what would you call a movie that is bad in the traditional sense? Like, are we talking Star Wars prequels and sequel trilogies? Or are we talking traditionally bad in the sense that it's so ugly and horrific that you cannot turn away, much like Mike Myers' Cat in the Hat? Then Matt the Movie Critic claims that Thunderbolts is a hollowed out detritus of a crumbling empire. So I look at this film, and then I analyze it, comparing it to the recent Marvel releases. And what I see is, yes, there is an empire that has crumbled, but Thunderbolts is not part of the wreckage. Instead, Thunderbolts is a survivor that has crawled out of the rubble of Marvel. And this just proves that Marvel still has some tricks shoved up Bucky Barnes' prosthetic arm. EJ Moreno from Flickering Myth says, this one feels like a streaming movie that escaped Disney Plus and somehow stumbled into the cinema. Marvel's Discount Suicide Squad. Can we finally just call it now? There are movies that show up on Disney Plus or any streaming service that should be in theaters. And then, of course, we all know that there are movies in theaters that have no business soiling the silver screens because they only belong in our living rooms on streaming services, and a lot of times not even then. There is literally no difference at this point between the two. So then the rest of this review, is Thunderbolts movie's answer to DC's Suicide Squad? Well, I guess it is in the sense that Fox's Volcano is the answer to Universal's Dante's Peak. One studio did their version of something, and then another studio tried their version on that same topic. By the way, when I looked up 1997's Volcano, Google showed that people have asked if Volcano was a true story. I kind of feel like a volcano would do Los Angeles a lot of favors. Oh, and look here. It says that EJ was actually one of the people that asked that question. Alan Ning from Film Threat says, Thunderbolts tries to turn superheroes into therapists, but all it really does is leave fans desperate for a proper brawl. The fights in this movie are a lot better than what we've seen in a long time. The two that stand out in particular is the one where they all meet about, 20 minutes into the movie? There's an epic fight that happens there. I love what they do with the knife throwing. And then the one halfway through, the fight with the convoy, it was just basically Mad Max style, but it really, really worked. And as far as the superheroes being therapists, all I can say is that in this day of high therapy premiums, I'll take my counseling from anywhere, as long as it doesn't require me to dip into my children's college funds. Don Shanahan from Film Obsessive says, Thunderbolts goes to show that when you make something about cheap heroes, you get a cheap return. Well, it doesn't look like the return on investment is going to be cheap here. And what about Iron Man? Like, in 2009, nobody cared about Iron Man. That was like the very bottom of the barrel. And look where it led us. Without Iron Man, there never would have been a Marvel empire to begin with. The same could be said about Guardians of the Galaxy and Green Lantern. No, not that one. Steven Silver from the SS Ben Hecht says that Thunderbolts is an underwhelmingly effort with a structure that feels a lot like a dumping ground for secondary characters that the MCU doesn't know what to do with. Oh, Marvel knows exactly what they're going to do with the Thunderbolts, George Costanza. They're going to stick them in the void until Deadpool comes and retrieves them in Deadpool 8, Deadpool comes again. Nick Johnson from Vanyaland says, it's just abbreviated group therapy clad in faux Kevlar spandex, a recitation of traumas without the added benefit of free coffee and powdered donuts. Yes, Nick is the kind of guy that pays for therapy in order to get free coffee and donuts, which is the same reason he pays for his Costco membership card. Amy Nicholson from Los Angeles Times says, "Really, the whole movie feels like an Asterisk. Don't expect too much of me," it says. You know, that's what I said to my wife when we first got married. Which was strategic, because now, if I go so far as to flush the toilet, it is so much more than she expected from me. Rachel Wagner from Rachel's Reviews says, "Isn't the intended audience still teenagers and families with older kids? Is this age range really interested in existential dread, family conflict, and depression? The Toy Story movies are inarguably the most existential films that have ever been put to screen. And those are for ages fetus to tombstone. And if you look at all the crap that kids grow up with these days, many of them have lives that are filled with family conflict and trauma and depression. So yes, surprisingly, Marvel did make a movie that actually knows its audience and plays to their emotions. Are we sure that this is actually Marvel? Or maybe it was filmed 8 years ago before Marvel sold its soul to blandness. So then they just went back to the rubble of the Marvel Empire and pulled it out and said, hey, let's finally put it out there for everybody to see. Wow, we just came full circle. How about that? The audience reviews, you look at the high score. I could not really find any negative reviews from the audience, rightfully so, because this is actually a really, really decently made film. The only one that kind of stood out to me was, it came from Jose S. or Jose S. Gave it 5 stars. He said, had a great time with my family. Yeah, well, what did you think of the movie? I don't care if you went parasailing with your family. Don't tell me about that. Tell me what you thought about the movie. Hello? All right, let's head on over to the most honest review of Marvel's Thunderbolts. Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About says, the MCU's Earthbound version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Once again, Marvel makes us fall in love with a group of losers. In addition to the usual Marvel fun and action, Thunderbolts actually explores themes of depression, loneliness, and purpose. Sounds like Marvel's Thunderbolts accomplished a whole lot of things that people go to the movies for. I will see you in the next video. I'll take my counseling from anywhere as long as it doesn't require me to dip into my college. They're gonna stick them in the void until Deadpool comes back and rescues it.